Okay, today I thought I'd do a little mini devotional on some of the people that were around Israel that we see in the Bible. Take a look at the kingdom of Ammon, the kingdom of Moab, and the kingdom of Edom, and you can see where they were located on the map here, uh, according to next to Israel there. Today we'll take a look at Moabites first. To find the origin of the Moabites, we go to the Bible, and we see that Abraham, in the book of Genesis, leaves Ur the Chaldees, and he travels up to Haran, which is north of there. And when he gets there, God calls him out of Haran and to go to the promised land, which is Canaan. And so he brings his nephew Lot and Lot's family, his wife and two daughters, along with him. And so they travel down to the land of Canaan, the promised land. They have to go to Israel, or not Israel, but they got to go to Egypt for a little while. Then they come back up north again, and that's where they find that they have way too many flocks and herds and stuff, and so they decide to split up. Abraham stays where he's at, but Lot and his family, they move to the city of Sodom, which is one of the five cities of the plains. And God, though, decided that the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah and the other five cities of the plain were so wicked that he was going to destroy them with brimstone and fire. And we know from the Bible that Abraham pleads with God not to destroy them if he can find even one righteous person there. And of course, Lot and his family are in the city of Sodom. And so God sends some angels and gets Lot and his family out of there before he starts raining down fire and brimstone. And the angels get him out, and they told him to take off, and they told him don't look back, or to be turned to a pillar of salt. But Lot's wife does look back, and sure enough, God turned her into a pillar of salt. So now there's just Lot and his two daughters left. And his two daughters get it in their head that they're the only people left on earth, and it's going to be up to them to repopulate the earth. So they come up with a plan, and different nights they're going to get their father drunk and sleep with him and have children, which they did. And the one daughter had a son and named him Ammon, and the other daughter had a son and named him Moab. And after they grew up, they moved to their respective places there and met other people, and they became the fathers of the country, the kingdom of Ammon and Moabites. So we'll take a little bit about the economy of the Moabites and the people there. The economy was mining. They mined limestone and balsam, bitumen, around the Dead Sea. They also mined salt. They had agriculture, farming, and livestock, and they were big on trade. They were on the trade route, called the King's Highway. Their religion, they were polytheists. They worshipped many gods. Their head god was Chemosh. Ashton was the female counterpart to Chemosh. They were known to use human sacrifice. Even one of their kings, Mesha, sacrificed one of his own sons to assure a victory in battle. Their language was a form of ancient Hebrew, and their alphabet became a form of the ancient pictographic language. In the Bible, we see that the relationship between Israel and Moab was kind of on again and off again. Sometimes it was peaceful, sometimes they were at war. We see in 1 Samuel, David, when he was running from King Saul, who was out to kill him, brought his family, his mom and his dad and his brothers and sisters and all that, and others to Moab and asked the king to take care of them until God told him what to do. And the king of Moab agreed. But then when we see in 2 Samuel, after David defeats the Philistines, he conquers Moab, and who become servants of David, and the Bible says that they ended up having to pay tribute to David. In Judges chapter 3, you see that God sends the Moabites against the Israelites because they had did evil in the eyes of God, and the people had cried out, and God sent them a judge who got them out of trouble. And there's quite a bit of other references in the Bible. My Nelson's Concordance lists 196 references to the Moabites. But ultimately, Moab was conquered and absorbed into the Assyrian Empire about 800 BC. Okay, now we'll take a look at who the Ammonite people were. We already know from the Moabite part of it that Abraham went up to Ur and then came down to the Promised Land and brought Lot and his wife, and his two daughters ended up having two sons, Moab and Ammon, and that's where the Ammonites came from. They were an agrarian people, the farmers, ranchers. Also, they were involved in mining, limestone, sandstone. They were also heavily involved in trade along the King's Highway, like a lot of the folks back there were. They were also polytheists, worshipped multiple gods, pagan. Their chief god was Moloch. Most depictions of him have him with a man's body with the head of a bull. Today you can see depictions of Moloch as depicted as an owl. Apparently he demanded human sacrifice, especially children. They were also associated with the cult of Baal that we see in the Bible. Some of the historical incidents relating to the Ammonites that we see in the Bible is David and Bathsheba. We find out in the Bible that Solomon, David's son from Bathsheba, he married an Ammonite woman. Her name was Naamah, and she had a son, Rehoboam. And Solomon, to make his wife happy, he went as far as to erect an altar of the god Moloch, which is really a big no-no. When Solomon died, of course, Rehoboam took over, but Rehoboam kept up with his father's footsteps and subjected the people to heavy labor and heavy taxes. And ultimately, a guy named Jeroboam steps up and opposes Rehoboam, and there's a civil war there. And the country splits in two. This is the point where Israel splits in two. There's Israel in the north and Judah in the south. And so now we know a little bit about the Ammonites. And next we'll be taking a look at the Edomites. Okay, this brings us to the Edomites. And you can see where they were located on the map. To find the origins of the Edomites, we got to go back to Abraham again. Abraham's son Isaac had two twin sons, Jacob and Esau. Jacob was more of the indoor type, but Esau was more of the rough and tumble outdoor type. Jacob ends up buying Esau's birthright and tricks him out of his blessing. And at that point, Esau wanted to kill Jacob, so Jacob had to leave. They ultimately did reunite later on, but then Esau, he moves to this area we see on the map and becomes the father of the Edomites. Their religion was pagan. They worshipped multiple gods. When they weren't making war, they were very warlike. They made their living usually in agriculture and trading. They were on the King's Highway there. During the time of the Maccabees, we can read in the Apocrypha, 1st and 2nd Maccabees, we find out that a lot of the Edomites converted to Judaism. One of the most famous of these Edomite Jews was King Herod. He came to power, and of course you can read about him in the Bible. A couple more of the more famous Edomite Jews were Judas Iscariot, who of course betrayed Jesus, and Caiaphas, who was the non-legitimate high priest who indicted Jesus. So now we know a little bit about the Edomites, a little bit about the Moabites, and a little bit about the Ammonites. And this will conclude this little devotional. Next one, I think we'll take a look at the Philistines and the Phoenicians, the Assyrians, and the Babylonians.